Last part of our microbiology notes are just talking about the lifespan of bacteria. So I put bacteria in quotes here because we're talking about archaea, anything that's a prokaryotic cell. They have very, very short lifespans. Let me autofocus this, lock it. Okay, they have very short lifespans, and that is because they are prokaryotes. So I'm just going to put prokaryotes. And these are cells that do not have a nucleus. So when we are looking, I'm just going to show you again, when we're looking at a cell that does not protect its DNA, it's not going to have a very long lifespan, okay? So it's just the DNA, which is the brain of the cell, is exposed. It has a lot of mutations that can happen and all that kind of stuff. So it has a very short lifespan. It has to replicate, and that is the job of like every species, is to carry on their species. So to replicate before they die. So they don't have a very long lifespan. They can range from a few minutes, maybe even, to just a 24 hours, something like that, before they divide. So it's about a 12-hour lifespan on average. So they must reproduce very, very quickly. Okay, and, you know, unlike humans who are, you know, trillions of cells by the time we're born, these are one cell. They're always unicellular. So it's basically like, it can be very much like mitosis, which we'll see down here. But they do have two options here. They can reproduce sexually. Well, let's see. I think I want to put that over there. Sorry. Oh, don't write that. Sexual is called conjugation. Okay, sexual reproduction of bacteria is called conjugation. And it's where they just share or mix genetic material. So they share or mix their DNA with other bacteria of the same species. Now, if they have pili or cilia, sometimes this is how they do that, okay? So they just share genetic material. They just like shoot a piece of DNA from here. There'd be another bacteria right here, and then they would just swap up some DNA. And the reason that any species goes through sexual reproduction is to make that species stronger. So if this one, let's say, is if this species is typically killed off by penicillin, and it has formed a resistance to penicillin, it would be very beneficial to other bacteria of the same species to share DNA with this one, because then it would pass on that penicillin resistance to those other bacteria. Okay, and then they'd split in half, and then they would then they would all be penicillin resistant. So that's very dangerous for us, very good for them. So sexual reproduction, just like with animals or plants or anything else that sexually reproduces, they do that to increase genetic variation. And so that's just the variety of options or the variety of traits that show up in the species. And this always tends to make species stronger. This is how we evolve. This is how we change to, the stronger survive. And so this is how the natural selection works, is that if a species gets stronger, the stronger survive, and then you keep passing on those genes that made you where you were able to survive in whatever the circumstances were in the world. And then they can also asexually reproduce, and asexual reproduction of bacteria is called binary fission. Okay, binary fission is asexual reproduction. And remember, if a or an is in front of a word, it means it's not sexual reproduction. So these do not reproduce with others. This is basically mitosis. Actually, it is mitosis. The bacterial cell just replicates its DNA, and then it splits in half. That's all it does. And it's going to, when it does that, because there is no swapping up of DNA, there is nothing else. It's just like how we see in mitosis, where you should be forming identical cells to the one that it came from. So this is just making a clone of itself, okay? And this is good for bacteria that are trying to like reproduce very quickly. It's bad for bacteria if the population is weak to, let's say, penicillin. Then all it takes is penicillin to kill everything, okay? So there is no genetic variation. Again, good for us if we have a bacterial infection and they're all susceptible to dying of the same thing. Bad for them. So sexual reproduction does make a species stronger. Binary fission, I'm just going to use that same orange marker. So we're just going to say, okay, so here's the original DNA. That DNA replicates. And then you get two brand new cells when the cells split that are identical to the first one. So these are two new, what did I want to say? Identical cells and are same as original. Okay? So there is no genetic variety whatsoever right here when they go through this. And a lot of bacteria do this. Some can do both. Okay? Just depends on what's needed. Oh, I was blocking the thing there. And then the last bit of information on microbiology, I mean, we could study this forever. So there is all kinds of stuff to study for microbiology. Like I said before, you wouldn't be here if it were not for the bacteria that are keeping you alive. That's kind of a side note. I just want you to understand there's a lot more to this. We're just kind of skimming the top of this big, huge world of bacteria. Some bacteria, the last little bit of information, can form what we call spores. So again, back to this generic bacteria picture. So sometimes they form, I said sometimes bacteria can have this extra layer of capsule. They could also form a spore around here if they're in an unfavorable condition. So let's say that that E. coli is, or something, let's say that something needs to get to your lower digestive system, but before it gets there, it has to make its way through your stomach. Your stomach has very, very, very strong acid in it. So sometimes bacteria that know they need to get past something, or they are engineered by their DNA to get past something, they would form a spore. And then once they get through that unfavorable condition, something that would kill them, that spore dissolves. Maybe it's the acid that dissolves it. Maybe it's just some enzyme that they produce that dissolves it. And then they don't have any more. So a spore can be temporary. Well, let's see. Can form spores, or they have a protective layer called a capsid. So they can be temporary, and they can allow bacteria to go through unfavorable conditions. Hang on just a second. Okay, so spores and capsids can allow bacteria, if they have them, to go dormant, okay, during unfavorable conditions. This could be bacteria that have been sitting in a glacier. I mentioned that in a previous video. And then once it gets into warmer air climates, warmer waters, their spore dissolves. They become active again. So it just makes them where they're inactive, but they're still living. They can do this for years, like lots and lots of years. It just depends on the bacteria. And they survive in that dormant state until the conditions become favorable. Possibly for millions of years. We haven't been studying these obviously for millions of years, but we do have, scientists believe that there are living bacteria just as they've gone through reproduction and stuff, or they've sat in a dormant state that are very, very old, or colonies that are very, very old. So bacteria are pretty awesome. Like I said, there's a whole lot more to learn about them. So You have 2 assignments that will be grades. One is write 2 thank you notes to bacteria. Okay, so you need to look up 2 different bacteria names, write them a thank you note, tell them why you're thankful for them. Specifically, why are you not just, thank you. No, be specific. Say exactly why you're thankful for this bacteria. And then on the back, say exactly what this bacteria did. Name a bacteria. What did it try to do? This is our pink slip. This is our disciplinary notice if you don't know what this is at school. So what did this bacteria do? What offense? How was it trying to hurt you or kill you or whatever? And then what did you do about it? How did you kill it? What did you do? Okay, and you need to write 2 up. All right? And then the last thing for a grade is your disease spread gizmo. And I do not have one of those in my hands right now. Oh, yes, I do. So the disease spread gizmo, so you need to go on to explorelearning.com and get this done. And you are going to turn this into the black tray under the window. You are going to write this up, keep this in your binder, but type them into Teams. There's a spot in Teams, okay? All right.